Hey, welcome everybody. This is another installment of Pages Promotions Indie Author Gathering on Zoom. We are having a virtual book festival all through the months of June so that we can kind of reach out to our readers and have some conversations about books and stuff. Usually we do this at book festivals. Everybody gets a table and we all stand around the tables and chat, but now we can't do that. So this is the next best thing. So welcome everybody. I'm glad to have you all here. Today's featured author is Troy Wymer. Hey, Troy.
Yay.
Troy writes science fiction, space opera kinds of nifty stuff.
Yep.
And some of it borders on mature themes. So keep that in mind. We're going to talk a little bit about that because I'm all curious about some aspects of that. But as we do when we stand around a festival table, if you guys have questions or a conversation, just, be rude, talk over the top of me. No need to raise your hand or anything like that. So Troy, just to get us started, the book that we're featuring in our festival is this one, Xenotrist, which is, I really love the cover. It's a really cool cover. So I would love it if you could give us a brief synopsis of the story and the characters.
Well, it's a novel. It's an erotic space opera novel. I started writing it in 2018 and finished in 2019 with all the editing and everything. But it's the main character's name is Sierra, and she is a galactic emergency medical technician. So she'll go around the galaxy as a first responder to all these disasters and things that are going on. She's also a vocalist for a symphonic metal band called Marinata. And she's also a sexual freedom advocate because there's two species in the galaxies, the Xenolphins, which are a bluish-gray species, which you see on the cover, and then the humans. And the Xenolphin government leader forbids there to be a relationship between Xenolphins and humans, and so she advocates for them so that they can be together. So she's going around doing all this advocating, and she has a speech toward the end of the book, a sexual freedom speech about all that. And so that's basically it in a nutshell, but that's book one of a duology, and I'm currently writing the second book, which will be called Feathers of Sharda.
Okay.
And there's a kind of a mystery region of space that I kind of would compare it to like the Bermuda Triangle. Weird things happen there. But the second book that I'm writing now goes into depth of what really is going on there. And so the first book ends up on a cliffhanger, and so it kind of leaves the audience wondering, whoa, what's going to happen next, kind of thing. So.
And there's only two in that series, right? It's not going to be a trilogy?
Yeah, just a duology.
Okay, great. So the question I had about this, we talked a little bit about this on Indie Reads TV, but because it's public television, we were kind of limited. I'm really curious about how you decided to marry the two topics of science fiction, space, and sexual freedom. Those two topics don't usually happen in a singular genre novel like this.
Right.
So I'm really curious about what drove you to take those two topics and knit them together.
Well, since I only write in space opera, I wanted to incorporate some other ideas and thoughts into that. Like when I plan on at some point writing fantasy and mystery, but I'm also going to incorporate those into space opera. So I guess that's what makes it unique instead of just going off and doing I guess it would have been just a romance kind of erotica. I have to keep it in my own thing for my own comfort because that's what I like to do is space opera stuff. So I just kind of am bringing other things into that, and it kind of makes a unique mix I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a unique mix. Before I'd met you, I hadn't heard of those two topics being put in the same book together. So, yeah, has
There's a
anybody
few of them
else?
out there, but not too many.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a pretty rare marriage, I think.
I
So, any questions or comments for Troy at this point?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm not really familiar with the term space opera. Can you elaborate on that?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's generally when you have space travel between planets. A lot of it involves galactic type empires, melodramatic situations going on. Lots of different characters in different positions. There can be romance involved. I guess Star Wars would be a really good example of a space opera.
Okay. That helps. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gene, you're familiar with that. Can you add anything to that comment about that genre?
Yeah, it just usually is the science fiction with other elements lumped in. It's usually like a bigger world picture, like you said, more characters, kind of more of an epic scale kind of thing rather than just your usual space travel.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I like to think of it as Lord of the Rings in space.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, it's usually on a galactic scale. In my case, with Lightyear's trilogy, it involves 2 galaxies, and it mentions a third, and there's time travel involved with that one as well. So, yeah, it's pretty grand in scope.
Yeah. Any other questions for Troy at this point? No? Okay. So Troy, show us the other books that you have and give us a synopsis of those.
Okay. Well, there's Lightyear's trilogy. That's the one I just mentioned. That's the first book, well, first 3 books I wrote. There's 3 books into one published book. And the first book, called Lightyears, it's a novel. I wrote that probably 84 to 86, or it's copyrighted in 87 originally, but so that is a novel that's broke down into 4 parts, and the first part is called The Blue Mar Rain, and then the second is called The Explorations, and then the third is The Regulaminous Galaxy, and then the fourth is The Final Mission. So in a nutshell, that is basically 2 brothers whose lives are changed forever as they travel through space and time, defeat evil empires, and save the galaxy. But I mean, to get more specific, the 2 brothers, their father's taken by the Blue Mar Empire, so they have to go on a quest and search for him. And then they join up with the resistance and eventually defeat the empire. They are then put on a mission to explore uncharted regions of the galaxy. They come across an advanced civilization. And with that civilization, they are able to travel to another galaxy through what is called time speed. It's like almost 1 million times faster than the speed of light. And it takes them 9 months to get to the other galaxy. And so in the other galaxy, they are introduced to an omnipotent character that seems to have all these weird, strange powers. And they have to get his permission to defeat another evil empire over there to set a race of clones free that are being enslaved. And then the advanced people stay in that galaxy while the people that teamed up with them travel back through time to their own galaxy. And then they're put on another mission where they have to discover, or they have to find a device that will destroy the galaxy if they don't find it and get rid of it. So that is the first of the 3 books. And then the second book is called Lightyears 2, Intragalactic Terrorism. And that happens 5 generations later. And the main character of the first book, Rhodey, travels into the future, and he helps his great-great-grandson, Destin, defeat his brother Baz from the first book. His descendants become evil. So the 2 families are one's becomes an empire, and so they have a resistance that has to try to defeat them. So he travels to the future to help his great-great-grandson defeat that, and also a bunch of terrorist organizations that have taken over the whole galaxy. And so they eventually do that and restore freedom to the galaxy. And then the third book, oh, before I get ahead of myself, the second book is a novella, and that I wrote about 87 to 88, 1987 to 88. And then the third one happens about 20 years after the second, and that's Light Years 3, Ominous Intervention. And that's a novelette that I wrote in 89.
Okay.
That is, let's see, that a time of peace has arrived in the galaxy, and the advent of new inventions makes space travel quicker between the two galaxies. What was a 9-month trip at time speed is now a instantaneous trip at light speed. And then also some of the newer inventions helps protect both galaxies with like a force field against an alien onslaught that's coming. What's interesting about the third book is that omnipotent character that I mentioned, he's introduced in book 1. It's left a mystery. You don't hear anything about him in book 2. And then in book 3, at the very beginning, it has his entire backstory.
Okay.
So that's basically the Light Years trilogy.
Awesome.
And then
So-
also one other thing, these I wrote in the 80s, and then I sat on them for many, many years. And then in 2016, after listening to a motivational speech from Steve Harvey, I decided to publish that, revise them, and it took a lot to revise them. It took me 2 years to get it all up to today's standards, and then 2018 I published them. And then in the back of each of my books, there's appendices. So like Light Years, in the back of that, it has a family tree of the characters, and then a list of leaders of different governments and things, and when they were in power. And then the back of book 2, Light Years 2, there's also an updated family tree. And then every book I ever publish has what I call a terminology index in the back. So all the unique words that I've come up with will show what chapter they're in. So if you want to do further research, you can just go to that chapter and look it up. It's not like a glossary where there's definitions. I do want to do that at some point on my website, though. So yeah, that's Light Years trilogy.
Yeah, the glossary idea, I can see that as maybe even an ancillary book to create as like a companion book, you know?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions for Troy at this point? So, Troy, how much world building do you have to do? I mean, I get part of it is like, you know, space, so you get to make it up because nobody's actually been there. But the world building research sounds to me like it would just be insurmountable.
Yeah, and I get pretty, there's a lot going on as far as Light Years trilogy has just, I mean, star system after star system, planet after planet. I mean, it's pretty intense. So I have to get pretty creative. There's a lot of research involved with, I don't know, different aspects of planetary atmospheres and just toxins and all kinds of stuff like that. But yeah, and I always
so
do
like
things.
so I guess what I'm asking is, do you have like worksheets like you might have for Dungeons and Dragons where you have actual like world building scopes, like, you know, here's this the landscape, this is what it looks like, smells like, feels like, as you would for like Dungeons and Dragons characters? I know when my son does characters for D&D, he just has so many details, and he has like plot maps written out. Do you do that, or do you just pants it and add the details as you go?
Well, with the Light Years trilogy, I kind of pantsed it as I go, as I went, I should say. With the latest one, Xenotrist, I had that all mapped out. So I had a map of all these planets, where approximately they were located in the galaxy, had all their names worked out, and what was closer to, which planet was closer to which in proximity, and all that. So I did more on Xenotris than I've done on the Light Years trilogy. That one just kind of came as it, or I guess as it came to me is how I developed it. But and then Treasures from Afar, I think that was more as it came to me as well.
Okay.
But, not that it takes away from the scope of the galactic scale or anything, but it just wasn't, I guess, as organized. Maybe in my head it was.
Yeah.
Are all
Isn't
the
that
are all,
always the way? What was that? Go ahead, Paul.
are all the galaxies in your stories fictional, or do any of them take place in the Milky Way?
Nope, they're all fictional. Like
Okay.
Light Years trilogy, there's the Blue Mar Galaxy, the Regulaminus Galaxy, and then that third one that's mentioned is the Nyctoglyptus Galaxy. So, and then in Treasures from Afar, we have the Tiffin Saram Galaxy, and in the new one, Xenotris, it's the Cerinthian Galaxy.
So, Treasures from Afar, just so I understand, it's a separate novel, or is it part of the
Which one?
trilogy Treasures?
Oh, Treasures from Afar. That is this one.
Yeah, that's what I wanted you to do. Show me that.
Yeah, that is a standalone.
Okay.
That is not related to the other at all. So, in that one, the main character's name is Shane, and he's urged to search for a treasure, and he goes off on this quest to search for this treasure, and in the meantime, he finds out that the galactic government is also searching for this treasure, and that's a very oppressive government. And along the way, he helps this woman to get out of her current very bad situation. And so he escapes the galactic government's jurisdiction and finds out his girlfriend is being held prisoner, so he has to rescue her, and that's on a backwater planet, so there's not a lot of technology going on. And he sails across a sea in a sail ship to the castle where she's being held, so there's a castle rescue thing going there. So he joins with her, and then they go, and he realizes where this treasure is located. They go there, find out that there's been an alien race that's also been searching for it. So they team up with this alien race who has been mounting a war against this galactic government. And the galactic government has also joined with a Universal Expanse Church to both be very oppressive to the people. And so also there was an assassination, and somebody overthrew the galactic government, and an even more evil ruler became ahead of that and changed the name to the Third Tiffin Saram Empire. So they're defeating all that toward the end, and it doesn't end at it doesn't tell you who won the war at the end of the book. So it's in the midst of the war at the end of the book.
Does that mean that there's another book coming?
There's not. But
so you're just out to torture us.
No. It kind of leads you to believe that the good guys win in the end.
Okay.
Which is the alien race.
But we don't have confirmation on that.
No, I suppose I could. I left it open to do that, but.
So are you considering adding another book to that? Making it a duology?
I have not considered that, no. I mean, early on I was going to, but then it doesn't leave you, I guess at the end, I guess it did one reader. I was going to say it doesn't lead you wanting there to be a sequel, but that's just my opinion. I was told by a reader that, what the heck? Well, somebody did expect more, so I guess I could write another one if I need to.
Anybody else?
How do you, so kind of piggybacking off of the world building, what do you do or what do you use to keep track of your world building? I know that there's software out there, there's workbooks you can buy that you can just kind of fill in the blanks, or do you have your own system?
I have basically, I guess, text files that kind of give all the features of different planets and things. I just bumped something on here. Hang on one second. Okay. So yeah, just like my characters, all the descriptions, I'll have a text file that lists all the features of characters. Same thing with the worlds.
Right. So we heard yesterday, Andy writes on the wall and you write in your computer. Same idea. Yeah.
And I mean, I'll have a printout of it, hard copy as well, but yeah, that's where it resides.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Anybody else? So who are your biggest literary influences?
My favorite author is Kevin J. Anderson, and he is the one that I teamed up with Frank Herbert's son, Brian Herbert, and finished writing Dune books after Frank Herbert died.
Okay.
He also does some really, really good Star Wars books. The Jedi Search, there was 3 books that he did. I'm trying to look over here. It's called the Jedi Trilogy Academy. But those 3 books are really what got me into Kevin J. Anderson. And yeah, so he does a phenomenal job of taking something that you would, that you see from the movies, for instance, like a probe droid on Hoth, and he'll put that in his world somewhere, like there's a sunken one at the bottom of an ocean, and it has a little backstory of why that's there, and, you know, different things like that. And it's kind of inspiring because when I'm writing a book and I drop a little clue here, I want people to wonder about that, and then later on we'll tell the audience, hey, that's why this is here, and so forth. So that kind of, his work was a little inspiring in that aspect.
Okay, so would I infer correctly then that you're a big fan of fan fiction?
Well, he does his own stuff too.
Right. No, but I mean that concept of taking an idea from another source and then building on it and making it your own.
Well,
because there are a lot of people out there that write fan fiction and it's really good.
Well, I guess I wouldn't say so much. When I meant dropping a clue, I meant a clue of something that I've created myself.
Okay.
And then elaborating on that later in the story. But with that said, I do have influences that you may be able to recognize in some of my writing. Like there's maybe just some lines that might sound familiar with something you might see in a James Bond movie or I can't think of anything right now besides that one, but V, Dune, Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers, Star Wars, Star Trek, there might be some things in there that you might say, hey, that sounds familiar or something because of that so much influence with that stuff.
Yeah, I think we're all influenced. I mean, I'm watching Jean shake her head. I know she's influenced by stuff like that too.
The same things.
Right, yeah. So I don't, I'm not throwing a negative connotation on the idea of fan fiction because I know that we're all influenced by what we read. I mean, it's hard not to be.
Right.
So I was just curious if that was one of those things that you aspire to kind of weave little clues like that into your book, or
I guess if you want to,
or is it just something that happens by happenstance?
I think it happens because I didn't realize the James Bond thing until way later. It's like, hey, wait a minute. Like, I think it's Goldfinger, not that science fiction by any means, but that he says, no, James Bond, it's time to die, or something like that. And then there's a trial that happens in book 2 of Lightyear's trilogy that I say that same thing to it's time to die or whatever. And it's like, hey, maybe it was a subconscious thing. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm a firm believer that without Mozart, the Beatles wouldn't have happened. So there you go.
Agreed.
So what is the hardest part of your writing process? What's the thing in your process that you struggle with most frequently?
When I'm writing the second book of the Xenotrist duology right now, Feathers of Shada, and I'm struggling with, sometimes I'll come up with an idea and I don't know if I want to do that or not. So I want to get outside opinions. So I'll ask my wife or I'll ask others, like, should I put 2 battleships here in this star system or just 1? So I went on this group I'm with because of the situation, and then I get feedbacks like, oh, 1, 2, 2. And it's like, oh gosh, I asked for it. But the hardest part, I guess, not knowing about what I'm writing about, not knowing enough about a subject. Like right now I'm doing some DNA modification stuff and I don't know anything about it. And you had mentioned to the guy that wrote Jurassic Park to check his stuff out.
Michael Crichton, yeah.
Yep.
I don't know much about what I'm writing about, so I wrote it, and now I'm going to go find out if it makes sense or not. Hopefully I don't sound stupid. But that's, I guess, the hardest part is not knowing what I'm writing about. So you do as much research as you can, and
sure.
Since it is science fiction, though, I have a little bit more leniency than I guess a fiction or a nonfiction book would be.
Right.
Yep. I found that I wrote a book about the afterlife, and because nobody had ever been to heaven and hell and come back and reported on it, it was really easy. I had complete latitude.
Right.
Any other questions for Troy before? I mean, I don't want to dominate the conversation here, guys.
Just
Feel
a
free to jump
personal
in.
question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you said you started the first ones in the 80s, so how long have you been writing, and is this all you've ever wanted to do, or did you fall into it after something else?
Well, because I was so influenced by those things I mentioned, like Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers, Star Wars, Dune, V. I just wanted to build a world of my own, and I have the creative processes to do that, I suppose. So I was like 15. I started writing. It was like 84, the mid 80s that I did that. By the end of the 80s, I had that trilogy written. And then it sat there. I did not have, back then, I typed it out. I had a hard copy, and that was that. So I'm glad I had to go and scan all those to do what I did. But and then in 1991 and 92, I did the Treasures from Afar one. I had already been married at that time, so that was really early on. I had bought a word processor. So that was stored on these obsolete Smith Corona 3-inch proprietary discs that I had nowadays I could do nothing with. So I ended up sending those to a place in Chicago, and they converted it and emailed me text files. So that was very nice. Better than scanning all those ones in too. But and then I think it was 90. I tried to get Treasures from Afar published with a traditional publisher in back in the early 90s, and they wanted $11,000 for me to publish that, and then they would have sent me a skid of books that I would have tried to sell and market myself.
Okay, that does not sound like traditional at all.
No, no, I'm sorry. Let me back up. That was a Vanity Press quote.
Okay, that sounds
Traditional ones kept rejecting me, so I wasn't able to actually get through to a traditional one. It was just kind of impossible for me, I suppose, at the time. And so I'm very thankful for all the self-publishing companies that are out there now. It makes a world of difference. But I was at dinner. I was in my office doing edits back in the mid-90s for this Treasures from Afar. And my wife called me to dinner, and I closed the book, and it stayed closed for till 2016. So for 24 years, I did nothing with writing. And then that motivational speech from Steve Harvey is what basically it kind of said, hey, do something with this. So I did, and it took me 2 years to revise and edit up the latest trilogy and Treasures from Afar. But in 2018, I did all that, published them, and then now I want to continue to do this on a regular basis. So that's when I wrote Xenotrist, and now I'm writing the sequel.
So is there are you going to stay in the space opera genre, or is there another genre you might see yourself writing in the upcoming future?
I will stay in the space opera, but I do want, like I did on this one, it's erotic space opera. I want to bring in a fantasy space opera, a mystery. I might do the mystery one first after this, because growing up, like as a teenager, I always liked to read mystery books, and I had a whole bunch of mystery books that I read, and that is a huge influence. So I think I'm going to do a mystery space opera.
Awesome. That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions for Troy? No? Troy, tell us about the promotion you've got going right now.
Okay. Well, for this June 2020 virtual book festival that you have going, if you buy a paperback, any Wymer Novels title, through the bookshop page, which is a link on my website, you'll get 20% off all the copies that you buy. You'll get 20% off, but there's specific coupon codes that you have to use. For Light Years Trilogy, it's 20 off LYT. I don't know if it's case sensitive or not.
It is
if
not.
it is, then what's that?
It is
Diana
not.
says it's
Oh,
not,
good,
no.
good.
I ordered it yesterday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, 20 off LYT is 20% off Light Years Trilogy. 20 off TFA is 20% off Treasures from Afar. And then 20 off XT is 20% off Xenotrist.
Excellent. And those are good through the month of June 2020,
All the way
correct?
till the end of this thing on the 27th.
Awesome. Awesome. And can you send a post through the festival Facebook page with those on there?
He did.
So that,
I did.
so that you put it out there already?
Yep,
Great.
that's
Yep.
where I got it.
Awesome. Okay, great.
But scrolling down through there, I'd have to go back. I don't know how far down it is now. But
Yeah,
Oh, it's okay.
everyone
Go
keeps
ahead.
putting new stuff, so.
Yeah, go ahead and repost it. It's not a problem.
okay.
You know, the whole idea of this event is to create as much awareness for all of the authors as possible. So feel free to post and this goes for all the authors that are participating in the event, feel free to post your specials or your promotions as frequently as you like on the page, because we know that not everybody sees it the moment you post it. You know, they'll come back to it later, or they might miss it completely. So another refreshment of that will be just fine. Fabulous.
Okay. I will do that.
Anything else for
And
Troy?
Diana, if you
Yes, sir.
have any questions about my book, any questions about the story, I would love to hear feedback and answer anything you have about the story.
Yep. I always try to get a hold of the author when I finish it and let them know. I became a big indie author fan, what was it, 3 years ago? In Muskegon, there at the front.
Cool.
And now I go around with my wagon. So this is really...
Oh,
This
is
is-
this the person Jean was telling me about?
Diana's the best.
It's,
That's awesome.
This is cool that you're doing this, but it's just not as much fun as bringing my wagon around.
Very cool.
Well, this is great. Thanks, Diana, for participating and supporting the authors. You know, we really appreciate that. And
Oh, yeah.
as I'm sure you've heard at other festivals before, reviews are an author's lifeblood.
Yep.
You know, we live and die on the sword of reader reviews. So anytime you can give us a review, and it doesn't have to be glowing, positive, good, bad, or indifferent. We just want to know,
Yep.
because it helps us to become better at what we do.
Yeah, I can't leave them on Amazon because I don't buy from Amazon.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
inside.
But
Yeah.
I leave them
Well,
on Barnes &
actually,
Noble if they're on there.
That bookshop through Book Baby has
Yeah.
their own little review thing.
Okay, I can do it there.
And
And
then
then also, you know,
generally,
you can always leave reviews on Facebook. You can leave reviews
Yeah.
on Troy's website directly. It's,
well,
you know,
yeah, my Facebook, what I'll end up doing is I'll copy something and I'll put it on my website, and then also on Reader's Favorite.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very appreciative of the Reader's Favorite reviews. They did some really good jobs. Like Light Years Trilogy got a 5-star. So did Xenotrist, and then Treasures from Afar got a 4-star. So,
excellent.
but they don't give. I don't believe they will even give you a review if it's a 1, 2, or a 3. They'll just privately email you and critique you that way. So, it's from what I read, if I remember right.
Okay, awesome.
I made a group on Facebook. It's a challenge to read 52 books in a year, so 1 a week. And so I always post to that book group when I'm done, and then I put it on my own Facebook page too. So it does get out there a little bit.
Very cool. And look at that. Jean,
Inside the house.
you took
Back
advantage
inside.
of your transporter and moved locations
I did.
magically. It's amazing how you do that. Troy, did you give her that technology?
It must have been one of those machines from that advanced civilization.
Yes.
You found a wormhole. I want the address.
Space
Yeah.
GPS.
I figure if you've got a wormhole, then I can use it to come visit the ducks.
Well, definitely.
Oh, there you go.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Anything else for Troy before we wrap up our little party here?
Nope.
No? Okay, awesome. Troy, thanks again for coming out today and sharing
Yes.
your work with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody who attended. I'm having so much fun doing these things. I hope everybody out there is enjoying them as much as I am. And feel free to come back. We're doing another one at 7 o'clock tomorrow. I forget who with, but check the schedule on the virtual Facebook page through Pages Promotions. We've got a little event page, and then it'll give you the full schedule of who's when and where. Again, if you missed this or any of the episodes that we're doing, they're going to be posted on our YouTube channel, so you can come back and visit them at any time.
Yeah, some of them that are happening during the week, during my work hours, I'm not going to be able to attend, but I'll
Sure.
try to do what I can when I can.
Absolutely. We appreciate the support. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Enjoy your weekend.
Bye.
See you,
Thanks, Paul.
cousin.
See ya.